good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending upon whichever time zone you are in. So I'll just cut down the introduction part of here. In simple, these things, I work for Philips, being a long timer in Philips, and currently part of the PMO organization, and doing the transformation, right? So I'm just one team member who is part of this big transformation journey. So what am I going to cover for the day? Right? We started our safe agile implementation way back in 2014, and it is still running. So I will probably just briefly touch about and recap, where we are with respect to that. And then the second part of my presentation, or predominantly, would be covering in terms of, hey, what are we doing beyond SAFe? How are we using scaled agile transformation as a vehicle in order to get into the technical code agility, right? And I have also brought in a lot of examples, right, and which I have kept it in the deck as well. All right, so everything wouldn't be covered in this 30-35 minutes or so, but I will leave the presentation with the organizers, and I am also giving a lot of links there which you could actually pick it up and do it. Some of these practices of wave 2, what we call as the software excellence practices of the technical code agility, we have even open sourced it, so that as a community we can together build it, right? And I will also tell you how we are scaling up with programs and practices as part of the technical agility, and as indicated, some results, a sample, more results are there in the annexure of it, and then what are the way forward, right? Please feel to interrupt with any questions that you may have, and I'm not actually seeing the chat window. I think Ashwini would manage it, and I will pick it up. Ashwini, if there are more questions, right, just alert me so that I could even pick it up, cut short some of my presentation time and pick up the questioning time.
Sure. Sundar, I mean, they want to see you, it seems. They want a video of you. So
hey, I thought I switched on the
okay, okay, yeah.
Just give me a moment. Am I still not there? 1 minute.
You're there, but video is off. Okay, now you are on.
Now?
So, yeah. Cool. Sorry for that interruption. Yeah.
Okay, so my presentation is also there, right?
Yeah, we see both the ones.
Okay, so I was in the second screen, so this is also sometimes happens.
Yeah, but we see your notes as well, so.
Yes, 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, super.
Hey, thanks. So get into the scaled agile transformation. Here, I would also like to thank a lot of coaches in the industry. I think some of them are also attending this session, who were part of our journey. And in fact, the credit goes to each one of them who were part of this journey, because we had a team of quite a number of external consultants who worked with us. And it's a tribute and credit to each one of them, including our scaled agile partners, people like Chris James, in fact, even Dean Leffingwell. So we had some quite a number of interesting interactions here. Okay, so some of the accolades that we got with the Scaled Agile program, and generally we get invited to many of the companies to share our presentation, few awards along the way, right? And also, I think the one on Scaled Agile website is, I think this is what Ashwini is talking about, continuously driving to develop high quality software. Right. So, okay, here just wanted to thanks to my previous presenter, I think Ramesh Noori, right? He actually spoke about how to implement SAFe. I would say that many of the steps, whatever he described, are no different. Okay, in what we did as well. He nicely coined it as a 9-step journey. Thanks to him. And as Ashwini said, I'm not going to go in depth about what we how exactly we implemented the part one of it, right? But just to talk about few numbers, we have covered close to about 50 plus business units within Philips. When we did the transformation, we had close to about 20 plus leadership engagement workshops where we always felt, the first spot, right? It has to, in order to make the journey success, right? We need to have a very good engagement with the leadership. And similarly, we work very closely in the trenches with the software developers, the Scrum teams, right? And there are quite a bit of flavors that has been there, right? Depending upon if it is a maintenance project, we had more of Kanban way of working, we had the Scrum way of working, then scaling it up towards the Agile release trains and so on. Right. So one of the problem statements we had at the beginning was that our deliveries were once in 18 months, and then from the time a change has been requested by the customer to the time the change has been delivered to the customer, right? So it was about 2 years, right? And here that's what you see in the center of the one, right? Where the release frequency for all software businesses has changed to 4 times a year, which also means that we consistently listen to the customer needs and voices, and how do we make it across. I think Chris presented a good slide on number of people trained and so on, right? So we have about close to 3,000 Agile certifications that has been done. And currently within the organization, there are 60 plus Agile release trains with more than 500 program increments that are running and delivering value. Okay, so we have about more than 4,500 people. Again, here, this is the count here is only the number of people tagged as software. Right. So if you actually take the whole organization, the numbers are very, very high. So here we are actually speaking more in terms of the R&D function, right? So which encompasses these people. A good amount of industry recognition for the work we did. And here again, running it with the guilds, having a product owner, a scrum master, or the RTE. Okay. And we introduced our own e-learning courses as well, so that we were able to increase the spread in terms of these are, for example, very short modules where, for example, we actually take a value stream alone and then try to say that, hey, what does it mean to us in Philips context? How do we go ahead and do it, right? And we have a SharePoint page where more than 400 plus artifacts from these deployments are constantly picked up and then shared, so that duplication or doing the same things again and again is avoided. Okay, so these are some of the numbers, right? And then again, I just one thing, right? So many people ask, hey, for change management, what did you do, right? So again, those were by the Agile Catalyst, including our good coaches, both our own as well as from the industry, who were primarily driving the Carter's 8-step change model. Okay, now let's get into the wave 2, right? So the first and fundamental question is this sufficient, right? So scaled Agile is working pretty much fine. So beyond that, what is that we are going to do it, right? So how are we going to use the vehicle of scaled Agile in order to further propagate the technical code agility? Okay, here people who know me, right, can recognize. I always have some stories to relate. Right. One of the questions that many people ask me when I do presentations or when I have discussions in the industry is that, hey, Sundar, things are fine. Do you think that these things really work, or is it something after some time everything fades away? Okay, and coming from the medical industry, so I was also doing some research and I got this example what you see on the left is called as the phantom limb problem. Here, what happens is a person has lost his hand, a limb, and then he actually goes for a lot of medications and things like that, but still he comes back to the doctor. And this is not only one patient. There are, if you actually just do a Google, there are just with the tagline "phantom limbs," you could see that there are a lot of patients like this. People, war veterans who have lost their leg, limb, or any parts of the body. They experience excruciating pain on their phantom limbs. They say that, hey, I have a itchy feeling. Okay, my whole hand is twisted towards my back. And generally people dismiss them, saying that, hey, this is something more of a neurological problem. They are not able to cope up with their loss. And one of the neuroscientists by name V.S. Ramchandran in University of California, right, when he examined the patients, he wanted to really find out what is happening. And then what he did is he actually just put a small mirror in a cardboard box, and then with the good limb, he just asked to make some movements of it, right? And as and when they moved it, the patient started feeling that their phantoms are moving. Basically, the phantom limb is moving. And then whatever that was happening in the brain, the particular connectivity which was lost or which was actually getting dormant, they start getting reactivated. Okay, and this concept is also called as neuroplasticity, right, where we start continuously learning, right? So in simple steps, it is unlearn. And especially for these COVID times, the one thing what I say is that unlearn, okay, learn, and then relearn. So with that, what you do is actually you increase the capacity for neuroplasticity in your brain. In other simple terms, it is nothing but supported by lifelong learning, where you have close to about more than 1 billion neurons in your brain, and then you multiply it with each neuron is again interconnected with about another 15,000 neurons. You just start making these learning paths and connectivity where your whole mental health, body health, everything goes to a next level, and the learning what we do continuously stays with us, right? So that's the story here. And few simple steps, like what you have to do to enhance neuroplasticity: sleep well, right? Breathing and meditation exercises. I think curcumin with a lot of anti-inflammatory properties, right? The last one, most importantly, learning a new activity, right? So when we go to the trenches, either which is scaled agile or it is the technical agility, right? We actually tell the team, hey, what we are doing is we are actually unlearning some of the past things and learning something which is new, or relearning something which is new. Right. So now actually in the other set of slides that are coming up, you would see a correlation with all of these aspects. And then the one that actually, say, for example, when I display a learning behavior, will the next person display the same behavior, right? So we have close to about 40% of our neurons in the brain. They are actually called as mirror neurons. And when you see something happening good, or when you see something happening bad, the mirror neurons within us would just imitate and mirror them. That's why they are actually called as mirror neurons. Okay, so I'm not spending more time here. Just Google mirror neuron, just Google phantom limbs. Okay, you would be amazed at what it does for you, and how right, these steps would stay with us for a lifelong learning. Okay, so with that story, now the problem statement. Okay. From the research from Microsoft, right, up to 78% of a developer's time is spent in understanding the code. Okay, so which means that in an active day of 8 hours, close to about 7 hours goes to just understanding what the code does, right? So for example, somebody may be working on a legacy stack, or somebody may be pair working with you, somebody may be just trying to understand other aspects of the code, in effect, right? If the code is so complex that close to about 7 out of the 8 hours in a productive day is just spent in understanding the code, right? And this is mainly due to the multitude of anti-patterns what we see in code, right? Just copy pasting some things, right? To give an example, what happens to these copy paste, right? In a class, generally we say that try to keep it not more than between 250 to 300 lines of code. But in actually, if you actually see a class, we have seen classes which are more than 10,000 lines of code. Right? On an average, the class is greater than 2,000 lines of code. Now, even your marketing person may come to you, or your product manager may come to you and say that, hey, it's just a 2-line of code, right? Why does it take 1 week to change my 2 lines of code, right? We are not fast, right? What is happening is, right, it is just like, hey, you want the small change, right? I have introduced something new over there. Right? And then it just keeps continuing. So everybody contributes to code in a way that is not needed. So these things build up the technical debt. I will just come back to it a little later as well. Right? If you actually look at some industry trends, the unit test automation, which are the most simplest and cheapest way of testing something, on an average, the lag time, if you build your code today, if you build your product today, the lag for unit testing, when I say unit testing, the automated unit testing on an average is about 9 months, right? Code duplication, right? Thanks to Google, too much of copy. And then, just I need to implement this small function, I need to go home, right? So just copy something and put it over there. Okay. Boy Scouts rule: leave the place more clean than you have found it. Right. I just work on a legacy code. Hey, somebody has done something wrong. I find that the mistake is very glaring in front of me. What do I do? Right. So if the attitude is, hey, should I be really worried about it? Should I be bothering about it? Or, right, I just do my work and I move on. Okay. End-to-end systems thinking, right? So these are some things which really affects the agility of our code. And what are we suggesting now? I am actually trying to bring the wave one or the scaled agile practices. If you actually look at it, right, some of those things, right, I have put it in very simple terms, right? Follow the principles and rules, right? Basically the architecture, design and code rules, right? For example, single responsibility principle. Okay, so one thing should do only one thing at a time. Cohesion and coupling, is it more, is it less, or is it too much? Okay, if your class is connected to another 100 classes, and then if you actually draw a small map, right, even if you want to do re-architecting of your class, you may be actually calling a lot of things from another 10 classes, so it almost becomes a nightmare that you could do anything about it. Right, so are we really getting into some refactoring aspects? Okay, code quality hygiene, right? So again, one of the principles there, test automation, CI/CD. Now DevOps is the keyword, and of course, working in medical industry. Privacy and data security are of utmost importance. So I'm just building a house of lean, in simply communicating the message across. Right. So if we do this, what we derive is that increase the speed and quality. Many people think speed and quality as two different parameters. Right. So it is actually one leading into another. So it's not it's more of a duality and not a dichotomy over there, resulting in value outcomes. When you do this house simply, right, what you do is you are actually preventing your the code, the stack from technical debt. I will come with some more examples little later as well. For example, 1 million lines of legacy code in Java. In fact, it actually takes about, as a maintenance alone, 300K US dollar, right? So just imagine, if you are an organization who has close to about, let's say, 10 million lines of Java code, and then just 3 million USD just goes down the drain just only for maintaining it, right? Sometimes, we also have this comfort feeling, no, we don't spend that much, but actually what happens is each one of our effort, right, will be cycle stealed in a way that we don't even realize it, right? So after the 8 hours, hey, can you just do me these small help? Can you help me to do these particular changes? Because that is actually a key one where the technical debt get accumulated. Okay, now we'll look into what are all the programs that we did it. So the first four from the bottom of the chain are up and running. Okay, so this I have actually projected it as a 3-year strategy roadmap going up to 2022. Okay, and the bottom layers are institutionalized practices, and then we are actually working on the dot source and DevOps as we move. Okay. You may even ask a question, right? DevOps, why it is? It's very simple to implement, right? So why it is there little late in the cycle? I will come to it as well. Okay, very short sentences on the programs that you see here. The .craft program is actually, we have the .NET and the other aspects, we have the habit of marking all our programs with a dot in the front, just to be closer with the development community and be in the trenches. The .craft is actually called as the craftsmanship. And here, the primary focus is code quality hygiene, test automation, and CI/CD. Okay, so starting from very basic things like compiler warnings, static analysis, code reviews, code duplication, dead code detection, okay, unit testing, functional testing, dynamic analysis, CI/CD, right? So we have actually got our own internal assessment framework. And as I speak about this assessment framework shortly, we are actually thinking of even making this public and open source, right? Because right, it is just common sense, and we don't feel that it has to necessarily be only for Philips, right? So you could actually pick up this particular small framework, and you could further enhance it, right? And from over the last 2 years, we see that all the businesses moving from a baseline score of about 60 to a baseline score of about 80. In fact, the craftsmanship, what it does is it actually helps you to prevent technical debt. Okay, we go to the business and tell them very clearly, a high probability of preventing your technical debt is available in this small instrument and tool. Okay, and also a high craftsmanship score does not mean that you will not have any technical debt or you will have a low technical debt. Okay, it just helps you to prevent future technical debt. You have to combine this with other modes and instruments that you are currently working on. Okay, the dot connect is something what we call as the technical engagement, or this is our whole culture. This is where we go and work in the trenches with the development team, right? So for example, let's say I, Sundar, as a development engineer, have some questions related to Java and how can I do better programming in Java. If there are another 10 people having the same interest, we do a very specific workshop with them. Say, for example, they are asking, hey, how do I use the Lambda functionality very effectively in my code base? We do a workshop for them. Or if it is related to dynamic analysis, we do a workshop for them. Okay, so this is specifically knowing either what is their problem, so that we have a one-on-one connect with them, and that is actually done by the competence leads. And we also help train some of the gurus within the business itself, so that we have a way of expanding these programs. And then, for example, when somebody sees their own architect or someone within the business who is actually doing these things, the connectivity becomes much higher. So that's what is the dot connect program. And just on the right hand side, you see some numbers. Using the dot craft, we have done close to about 125 plus assessments, and including businesses who do the self assessment. And you may ask a question, hey, what happens if businesses fail? Right, I go back to the primary indicator, trust, which is also coming, trust and transparency, which also comes from the SAFE. Okay, and the difference between the self-assessment and when we do a random sampling assessment, right, was close to about the difference was just about 5 to 7%, and it was even more in terms of understanding some of the questions over there. Okay, and so the dot grow is a capability building program. I will come to about it this particular slide. I will just take a moment to explain in my subsequent slides. I will just hold it for a moment. All right. So the dot debt is nothing but the technical debt, and how to prevent technical debt, which we discussed. Again, as I said, that the cost of technical debt, okay, is slowing us in a tremendous way. So unless and until this particular technical debt issues are addressed, right, so we will continue to have the conflict between the product management and the development, and the blame game in terms of, hey, we are slow, right? So the software development is always slow. Right. So the right, so we need to spend some time to really look into, hey, which are my key critical components or modules which is causing me like the Pareto analysis, 70% of the problems, 80% of the problems, and how am I going to address it? We need to have those negotiations with the product management team in order to address technical debt, right? So that we are able to move the whole vehicle or the mission towards speed and greater quality. Okay, the waste is it is actually called as the dot waste removal program. It is akin to lean, right? So we have a specialized program for where we observe the engineers, and a one-on-one feedback goes in to the engineer how he or she could work more effectively. And here, this is not an appraisal methodology, or we do not use this for any performance-based appraisal. So the information remains extremely confident only between the person who is observed and the technical observer who comes in, right? And no external notes are made or shared with others. The dot source is again another program where we are actually trying to move towards one code base, where we are actually working on how teams can contribute and work in a single code base, right? For example, GitHub, right? So how could all the developers be in GitHub? Today we have close to about 20 plus various mechanisms, like it could be TFS, it could be SVN, clear case, right? So how could we all migrate into one source code, right? So that is another program that is going on. And for DevOps, okay, the end-to-end connectivity is what we are looking for. Also, just to give you some industry data from the DORA, where a couple of you may be familiar with that as well. In the medical industry, right? If you build in a piece or a chunk of code now, by the time it could be delivered into the your hospital or customer premises, right? Because of the heavy regulatory aspects and so on, the average time is somewhere between 7 to 9 months, right? Compare and contrast this with any e-commerce portal or the Facebook or the Google, right? Where this actually, every 1.5 minutes or so, whatever that is checked in by the developer could automatically be seen by the end user, right? So there is a huge difference between these two aspects, and that is what we are trying to address via the DevOps, right? For which the basic activity is already taken care at the lowest part of the pillar, where we have a great CI/CD and robust pipeline. Now we are actually trying to see how to work with regulations and then make this more robust. For example, from the existing 7 to 9 months, even if we are able to bring it down to 6 months, right? So that's a tremendous amount of victory, I would say. Okay, so some of the key programs, right? Say, for example, the 125 assessments. So we have so many people engaged. This is the cultural part of it, right? The large-scale conferences across the globe, where we also bring in external speakers. So some of the things, for example, I don't know how many of you are aware, one of the very good tools is Code Scene Structure 101. This helps greatly in removing technical debt, apart from the commonly used tools like SonarQube, Tix, and so on. Here, I would just like to make a mention: use the tools to remove those parts which you could remove it, some of these errors which are more cheaper to eliminate and take it out, right? So, and then spend most of the intelligence and time in seeing that how the code could be structured in a very good way. The Grow is a capability building program. Again, some more data. For example, we actually spoke about one code base and things like that, enabling reuse. We have got close to about 150 repositories that are there. And of course, this is all connected to the CI/CD, where we actually call it as the guardrails. So if there is any architecture violations, right, so your build will fail immediately. So these are some things, which are more at the trenches, which could help you in having a better quality, right? So this is what I was indicating, the DORA report, right? So just click DORA and you may get a report out of it, and compare yourself with respect to DevOps, how good or proactive your organization is, okay? The complete cultural part is taken care by the Connect programs, right? Which is a key enabler for the engagement. So you have either one-on-one sessions, you have a group session, or the family class workshops, right? So depending upon what is the problem that we would like to collectively share. And the most important thing, everywhere it is only code. You can actually see here, it is only code, and nothing else than the code. In all the places you could actually see that, right? We work with the code. No more PowerPoint discussions, right? The teams are asked to bring their code, their problem area, and that gets addressed in that 2 hours workshop. Okay, so this is a capability building program, which I just want to take a minute, right? So where we do the 360-degree feedback, and there are some 3 key streams which are running. Software leadership, basically to the leaders, the engineers who are the architects and engineers, and then how do we change the culture via feedback. And the software events is nothing but the hackathon and the conference part of it. Okay. Now we have also introduced O'Reilly as the learning platform. You could see sense the interest within about 2 weeks from the time we introduced O'Reilly as the learning platform. We have close to about 2,400 licenses consumed, right? So people are hungry to learn. We need to move from the traditional way of learning to the way the new millennials are learning. Okay, so that is another key message which I just wanted to provide in this slide. Okay, so I will just go to some of the examples, right? How to here, I'll just share the slide with you. I just wanted to see here at the bottom of it, I have given a link. This is actually called as a tool called as Cerebrus, which we have open sourced it, right? It's a simple tool to measure all your code quality parameters. and then it can also be used to gate your builds. Okay, for example, copy paste detection, the finding the programming mistakes. Okay, then removing the CPD, the duplication checks, right? So all those things you could actually do it at the developer level. It need not be that you have to find it out either at your testing phase or at your nightly build. Even if you capture things at your nightly build, which means that the lab time is close to, on an average, about 8 to 16 hours, depending upon when you do it. Whereas if you actually gate all these simple parameters, right, starting from your compiler warnings at the developer desk, okay, so which means that each of those commits, they do not pass to your next stage, causing your build failures, right? And this, for something to be corrected at the developer desk, it just takes about 5 minutes, right? Whereas as you move forward, right, even for example, when your build fails, right, coming back to it, and then again finding it out, another person doing the review, right? So it takes enormous amount of time. So these are some of the practices, right? What we also call it as the cultural left shift strategy, which we are focusing on. Okay, again, another one, right? So again, I have given the open source link. Take these, for example, right? So this is a simple tool to find out how many of your test cases are duplicated. Can you imagine? If you just run this, take this and run this, you will find out 20% of your test cases are duplicated, right? Because they are in different repositories. They are right, nobody knows why they had been there. When you actually start adding it up for let's say 2 years, 3 years, and so on, but they just get executed, and you have your test reports. Okay, so can you address it? And just imagine the amount of potential savings that you would have it. Again, it's open source. Please pick it up in that particular repository, and you could run it for yourself. It is as simple as it is. Okay, now at a product level, right? So again, one more example at a product level where you can actually see here unique customer defects from one of the major system businesses, right? Coming from 37 to 0.11 per 100 exams. Again, we wouldn't claim that everything is because of the software center of excellence. There are a lot of improvement initiatives done by the business here, but in this case, majority of the level 3 and the level 4 defects, that is what get addressed here, and they were all related to the craftsmanship parameters, right? So business is happy, we are happy. We are just an enabler, standing behind the businesses and enabling them, and the hard work is always done by the businesses, right? So sharing across, and please reach out to me as well, right? So we would be more than happy to share and learn along with you. Okay. Communication, multiple forms, and then we have a good Yammer page. We have an engineering handbook. We have something called as what if videos, right? So and then we have conferences, right? Communicate, communicate, and communicate. So that's one of the key ingredients for change. I just wanted to spend some 30 seconds here. Recall my first message on the phantom limb neuroplasticity. Okay, right? So many people think that hey, if I actually copy, if I actually steal, right, it's a shame. No, it's not, right? If you actually reinvent something which is already there, then it is a shame. So that is why I like this particular quote from John, right? Which says deliberate practice or repetition, right? It just means that, right? Okay, repetition of a particular skill and technique which is already there, right? And that is where the mirror neurons are connected to it. Okay, right? The idea is that when we repeat some things again and again and again, right? So we are actually masters of it, and then the mirror neurons would ensure that we do not duplicate it again, right? So the idea is not that hey, I do it once, I forget it and move on, because the work what we do, right, it is almost 70 or 80% is that we have to repeat the same thing. For example, a coder has to repeat the coding, right? So how smart or skillful he or she is, right? So that's what makes the change and difference. Okay. Again, the focus areas and other things which we would continue, right? So there we are. Thanks.
Thanks, Sundar. On the dot. Maybe we can take 1 or 2 questions, if that makes sense. We do have a 10-minute break. So
can you help us with the various tools which Scrum team or development team can use in for the various purposes like quality, DevOps, and other?
Yeah, definitely we can do it, right? So there is a complete host list of tools that are available. Okay, so maybe just drop in a mail or just send a message to me in LinkedIn, and I'll be more than happy to share everything starting from, for example, SonarQube at a development place, right? There is a tool called as JSCPD, which is just, it's an open source freeware tool from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, right? And again, tool validated. It helps you to remove all your duplication. If you actually run that particular tool, you will see that greater than 30% of your code is duplication. Okay, so I could share you a host list of tools. Yeah.